Well, good afternoon, everybody. How we doing? Spectre here on the 5x5 channel here on this Wednesday, now the 16th day of February. Hopefully all you guys are doing well, wherever you may be tuning in from here on this hump day. Got a lot of news to get to here this afternoon, and got a little bit of a change up in the programming here today. Going to have a guest on Annette here, as I alluded to on the morning show. If you tuned in here this morning, be a gentleman Annette that was boots on the ground in Ottawa here over the last couple of weeks. We'll get a chance to talk to him. We'll have KB on in the second hour, and I'll round things out in the third hour as both Sunny and 412 Pixels appear to be out this afternoon. So that's going to do it for the broadcast. We'll round out the 3 hours with all sorts of news and commentary with everybody here. And of course, I'll see you guys out in chat here. If you're joining in from the D-Live side, good to have you aboard. Judy Bateson, Jean's Pretty Pups, Giggity Q, good to see you. Muscular Butcher. A few of you guys tuning in on the Twitch side, Gail MJ, good to see you. And of course, our YouTube folks. And last but not least, over on the Foxhole.app, if you're tuning in there this afternoon, good to have you aboard. So that being said, real quick piece as we start things off here this afternoon. Of course, today we were absolutely promised that we were going to have an invasion today, were we not? And what happened? Suddenly, we don't. Moon of Alabama says, Happy Russian Invasion Day. I woke up early today because the moon is full and I've been promised a Russian invasion. The sky was clouded, no moon to see, and the invasion is for some reason way less bloody than anticipated. Not all hope is lost, though. It may still be coming. 3 a.m. time frame when U.S. intelligence sources suspected a Russian attack came and went without incident last night as Putin continued to keep the West guessing. Cold, clear skies over capital Kiev, where locals had braced for an aerial blitz, remained silent, save for passing commercial flights. But tension remained high before dawn of the day. American officials had said Putin's invasion force would be unleashed on Ukraine. So I wonder why the map accompanying the sun screed has 4 of the 5 arrows showing a possible Russian advance, plus all those artillery cannons and tanks pointing toward the east. Pointing the wrong way if there's supposed to be an invasion, right? So what is this supposed to say? Anyway, let's have a happy Russian invasion day. So hopefully you guys all remember that we were promised by our State Department here that we were going to have this imminent threat, right? Except it didn't. Fell flat. So here we are. Anyway, we're going to get into a little bit more of that a little bit later on here. I just found that piece rather interesting about how screwed up things really are. It's a case of who is trying to psych one another out, the propaganda, the misinformation, disinformation campaigns, and that both sides. Absolutely ridiculous. But first, anyway, let's get after it here this afternoon. I brought a guest on, and that has been up in Canada here, over to Ottawa here the last couple weekends, doing some on-the-ground footage and that. So I want to introduce to you, seriously, Jay. Jay, how you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks a lot for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I just want to get the word out on what's really going on, and I'm glad that other people are reaching out to me to get my experience.
It's good deal. Yeah. So this afternoon, I figured, what the heck? Well, I've been kind of following some of your work and various others in that over on the Twitch platform. I know you've been broadcasting over there largely, and just kind of want to get your take on things, how you got into it, and as we kind of walk through this here today, just carrying on a conversation as if we're two people in passing on the streets of Ottawa here. What led you to actually decide to make the drive? I guess first of all, let's back up and explain where you're actually from and how you happened to get to Ottawa. What was your calling, let's say?
So to start off, my name's Jay Hanlon. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I've been experiencing COVID just as long as anybody else has. And I guess my whole reason for coming out here was just the fact that, for the last 2 years, we've been told all these health issues and medical issues. And we started off at first in fear because we didn't know what was really going on. And that kind of led to this becoming more of a political issue, and that is kind of when I started to ask a lot of questions. Obviously, this whole entire thing, the government didn't want us asking questions. They didn't want the science questioned with other science. They didn't want anything else going on like this. So being in Halifax, Nova Scotia, there wasn't really much going on here in order for me to actually do my part, or what I felt like I could do to kind of combat this. And I felt finally, once the trucker convoy, the Freedom Convoy of 2022, finally came up, I felt like that was my only way of actually being able to do something physically about this. Nova Scotia has been very, very liberal about the whole thing, so it's been difficult to actually do anything here in Nova Scotia to stop this. So I joined in.
There you go. So I guess obviously you're kind of in the same boat as many of us, been under mandates, been under lockdowns, but under the threats and everything else to this point. I guess are there a lot of people back in your home area that kind of see things the same way you do? Is this largely felt by most of the people in your city, town, province, or are people pretty much going along to get along at this point?
Well, actually, that's kind of what I noticed. So I don't know how much you know about the Maritimes. Like, it's the East Coast Canada. It was a 14-hour drive from Ottawa, but that's just to get you guys geographically explained here. But I noticed, so the East Coast kind of culture is very like family oriented, kitchen parties, talk to anybody on the street. Everybody's got your back. They'll take their shirts off their back for you. It doesn't matter what's going on. And that's just been kind of falling apart the last couple of years. And as of right now, I think last week CTV did some poll thing, and the only place in the country that was against lifting these mandates and getting rid of them was the Maritimes. And it was like quite off from the rest of the country and stuff and the other provinces. It was kind of shocking to me. So I guess we've never really been like this since I've been growing up and stuff. And now with the amount of separation and division that they've kind of incorporated on everybody in Nova Scotia, it's been really tough. So not very many people are on the same page as me. I'm taking a lot of heat, but every weekend now with these new rallies coming up and what I've been doing and stuff, I've actually been showing people that the mainstream media basically isn't getting the real story across. They've been kind of lying to us for quite some time now. And it was just really evident to me when I was up there. So I took it upon myself to go up, give people, specifically people back in Halifax, a voice and a set of eyes and ears so they can actually see what was going on here. And I think I did just that. And I have a lot more support than when I left here. People looked at this as a negative thing, but obviously mainstream media and the government has instilled fear in people, and they've been scared, thought this was a negative thing. And once I came up here, a lot of people started to kind of change their views on how they were looking at this. And as we've seen in Ottawa, I mean, just the last 3 weekends, every single weekend's been like threefold, fourfold bigger. It's been incredible. So I think
a fringe minority, right?
Yeah, sure. Just a fringe minority. We all saw how white like a ghost Justin got once we showed up on June 29th or January 29th. So
yeah, interesting. I guess I guess when I first started following this was probably maybe a couple days net before they finally hit Ottawa. I was following some streams net as they were making the trek westward east. But I guess you being from the east, were there a lot of trucks net coming in from the east as well? Even that, say, first weekend in that you got there still, or?
Yeah, so the first week, so we left Halifax on the 27th. We met up with the Newfoundland convoy who had to take ferries to get across to Nova Scotia to the mainland. And we all met up in Enfield. The problem with the ferries was there wasn't enough room to take everybody on that was come from Newfoundland. So some of Newfoundland lagged behind. And then we made various stops the entire way to Rivière du Loup on the first day. So the first day we probably had, I don't know, maybe 100 trucks or so from the East Coast. Now in the Maritimes, we have a very small population. We're like half of what Toronto is, and that's between 4 provinces. And that's just Toronto. So even Ontario, we're like a third of the population, just of one other province. Very small population here. So when we came, we were like, wow, this is actually a lot bigger than what we thought. And then once we hit Quebec, that was where we really took in a lot more trucks. So I think when we were coming into Ontario, it was our last night. We were playing in Van Vliet. That was the Friday night, the 28th. And when we came into there was probably 200, 300 trucks, plus all the vehicles. And I would say it was at least 5-1, maybe 8-1 car to truck ratio. So just because we weren't all truckers coming, it still made for a pretty intimidating convoy. It was close to 40 kilometers coming into Van Cleek that night.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean that first weekend, seeing Ottawa downtown and that fill up, and there were reports in that I think just prior to that said, and maybe this was some disinformation in that talking that the police had blocked off roads to prevent truckers from getting certain areas of town, things of that nature. And then when they did start to fill up, you heard that there was still a convoy coming in from the east that couldn't make its way in yet, and even a backlog of folks even from the west that were still trying to get in.
Yeah, all across the country, actually. It was kind of dependent on which provinces you were in and stuff. But as the convoy left and began in BC and began in in Newfoundland, it wasn't as big as I think they had it was bigger than they anticipated. So as we got closer to Ottawa, the police were able to create some sort of plan to try to block us off. Problem is there's so many routes in the city, they didn't have the police force to actually stop anything. In a lot of provinces and towns, we were actually led by RCMP officers. There was one video I have on my Twitch stream, and there was literally about 50 police, like RCMP cars, that blocked off one whole lane so we could just go by and slow roll in one little area. I think it was past Edmonton. I forget what town it was now, but they all men together because there's so much incredible support and on all the overpasses and everything. But I would say for the most part, the police were kind of interested in what we were doing, and they were kind of aiding us. They were keeping some of the small towns blocked off because they didn't want us coming in, taking all the gas for 100 square kilometers in an area. But we ended up managing to get through, and we got all the trucks downtown. And even a couple days into it, there were still trucks that were kept outside. But I mean, there's little tiny camps, let's say, surrounding the city still to today, with like 20 to 30 trucks in each one, and food and tents and fires and everything we basically needed to be set up. So
yeah, it looks to me like it's been fairly smooth, fairly organized. They've pretty well set up camp peaceably, and I think, what was it, after that first weekend, they started setting up in some baseball stadium parking lot or something, kind of like a mess hall type area and all that good stuff.
Yeah, there was a few different ones. Coventry, I think, is the one you're thinking of. It was close to a
Okay.
baseball diamond. Yeah, but there was a bunch of these places, and they were all testing gas and stuff for people coming in, because there was what we were doing wasn't technically illegal for the first couple of weeks. And then as Ottawa realized how big this was and how much support we were gaining day after day, this thing took traction, man. Like, and even last weekend, me and Tash rode doing some Uber orders, and we started hearing all these horns. And we looked up on the overpass, and there's about another 100 to 150 trucks coming in on the overpass, all with flags on them, like more convoys, like two more left for Nova Scotia there a few days ago. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and they can say what they want on the mainstream media, but whatever they're telling you is not the truth. 360 vehicles is an underestimate by far, which is the new number they're saying.
Interesting. So I guess walk me through kind of maybe that first weekend as everybody's kind of piling in and everybody's kind of feeling each other out. Probably not everybody knows where everybody's coming from, kind of like in an introductory type fashion. Everybody's just trying to get acclimated. And I don't know, is there really a plan per se as to how this is going to go, other than, hey, we're not leaving until the mandates are lifted?
So I guess when we were first coming in, we had a bunch of different convoys coming from different places, and each one had like a Zello app. So anybody that was part of the convoy was able to talk on there, like we were moderators because we were part of it. We were making our way up. But we kind of befriended a lot of people, so you kind of just stuck with your own. So like we had our East Coast convoy, which was right from Newfoundland all the way to through Quebec. The Quebec had their own convoy that met up with us, and we doubled up. But we got to meet a lot of people, and a lot of these trucks and stuff are all in similar areas. So there's one area, if whoever's in my stream can see it, but on the video I'm playing now, it's to the right of Parliament down Wellington Street. I think it's Wellington and Rideau. In the corner of that, there's a lot of Nova Scotian trucks there. And that was just kind of one group. There's lots of Quebec trucks, Saskatchewan trucks, all in different like other streets, like perpendicular and parallel to Parliament. But it was fairly well organized, like for getting gas and the money. The only problem is we just kept running into hurdles. So you can only be so organized in a situation like this, and the traction is gained with so many people coming in each weekend. It's been incredible. It's the organization of it's very difficult, and a lot of people are also associating us with being so organized so led by certain individuals in this. But realistically, the more people that come, nobody's really taking orders from anybody, as long as we kind of know that what the original plan was, which was to park your trucks, stay downtown, make sure they hear us. Everything that they've put up, the hurdles, we've got through them, even the honks and stuff. We stopped honking and stuff for those 10 days of the injunction. I'm not sure that's over, if they've continued it or not, but I know, like, we've been following all the rules and we've been doing everything legally, and we all just kind of spread off into our own little groups, I guess. But everybody's in it for the same reason. We know what the basic reason is, and we're not leaving until the job's done.
Yeah, not bad for a bunch of racists and white supremacists, as the government says, right? That they magically seem to coalesce about a point.
Right. And it's really hurtful to have it is really hurtful to have stuff like that being said about this group too, because anybody that's been following me the whole way, I've yet to see any of this. Even the first day when we got there was one Confederate flag apparently, and there was one Nazi flag. I didn't see the Nazi flag. I didn't see the Confederate flag. Both people were shunned and pushed out, not physically, obviously, but we were calling them out. We haven't been standing for anything like that, and I don't know why the narrative continues to be like that. It's not right. It's not correct from any means, but the mainstream media and the government have some sort of, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess just to explain to our viewers, maybe when we talk mainstream media down here, say stateside, we think of like the ABCs, NBCs, CBSs, CNN, MSNBC. Up there, you have what, CTV and CBC, and who else?
CTV, CBC, Global, National. Those are kind of the main ones that spread across the country. Other than that, it's a lot of smaller ones, more local ones and stuff. But I mean, even the local Ottawa, like things you'd consider mainstream media for the locals, like even them, they all changed their tune and stuff too, because I mean, you can't lie to in a local area when people know what's going on. So,
well, and not only that, I mean, give you guys some credit here as well for all you folks that have been streaming on the ground. I think you guys have done a valuable service to those wishing to understand what exactly is going on versus, say, sit and watch in front of the TV or go to the Mockingbird Media websites and get the lowdown that way. Whereas you're seeing what they're printing versus what you're seeing be two starkly different things, right?
Right, exactly. And that's when it kind of became apparent to me. And it really started to make me question a lot of other protests that have happened in our like recent past and stuff. It really makes me question like, what was the real story there? Was there actually as much damage as they said there was? Was there actually, you know what I mean? And obviously some of these things were true. And this is a different protest, just the way it's been portrayed, and nobody's been hurt. Nobody's been injured. The only thing that people were injured by was the 4 protesters that were run over by a anti-protester, I guess. But I mean, when you have your prime minister calling our group of people racist and misogynist, you get some very, very, very activist people who take things into their own hand. And I hope all the people that were hit in Winnipeg are okay now. But still, just things like that just make it really, really disappointing, I guess, as a Canadian. Just seeing things like that happen, it's like, holy smokes, I thought we were in a democracy, but it seems like it's away from that.
And that's a good point too, because after that first weekend, you guys kind of got over that initial hump. You guys were there for, say, the first week, and then here we come to the second weekend. People are anticipating that you're going to have even bigger crowds of protesters come in, and they did. And even across that first week of being there, you heard reports that, they're going to start sending in the anti-protesters, those that are against you. And that never really materialized, did it?
No, apparently a few days ago, I think there was an anti-protest or counter-protest, but it was only like 300 people, and the cops actually had to restrain those people and not us, which is crazy. So like I've put out a couple of videos on my Facebooks and stuff like that of counter protesters, and they're the ones that are getting violent. There's someone that stole some 13-year-old kid's flag, and then punched the dad and then got arrested right away. And the police knew that he had it all on camera. It wasn't him that did it. It was nothing. It's just, but it's happened so many times now, even in Halifax, the one that we had here last weekend, we had a counter protest of about 20 people that came right up on stage and tackled one of the guys right off the stage. And it's not us. It's not us. And I don't know why mainstream media keeps portraying it the way they do. I mean, even the stuff that they keep posting, all the videos of the Nazi flags and the pictures of the Confederate flag, like that was the first day. That was the first day, and that's it. That's never happened again. Nobody's ever came back up to it. Someone danced on the grave of the unknown soldier. That never happened again, but the same video is still circulating around the internet saying, look what these people are doing. It was the first night. And I know it's not right, and I don't condemn it. I don't do anything like that. It's terrible. But they continue to take that narrative that happened on the first day. And who knows if he was even part of our groups. It could have just been people that seen a big group and said, you know what, this looks like a good opportunity for me to voice my opinion. But it wasn't happening. We shut all these things down. It stopped right away. Like you can even see in the video, the person dancing on the unknown grave, she got pulled off and talked to, and you could see her like tone just completely change when she realized what she did. So it's terrible. But as this community has grown and the group of people in protesting in Ottawa, we've all got each other's backs, and this thing has been fantastic. There's been no major issues that we've caused as of yet. I mean, I know a lot of locals are hurt and annoyed just because we're in their city, but realistically, if this was somewhere else, if this was in Halifax or Toronto or Winnipeg or wherever, it still would have happened the same thing. So it just sucks that these people have to live in Ottawa and going through this, but we're not really doing anything illegal and or wrong, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this: do you miss the honking?
Kind of, but I don't know if you saw, but today when they came out with all the papers, they're giving people the Emergency Act papers, all the truckers and stuff, and they were talking about how, you know, you can be arrested now hereby, here's your warnings and blah, blah, blah. The liaisons were walking around giving them, and they all just started honking. No tickets were issued for honking. We all got whistles. We found a whistle. We started making noise. People with trumpets and their tubas and trombones, they all started coming out. We're still making noise. Now, that being said, even before that injunction came out, the first week was a little bit hectic where everybody was so excited to be there. But after a little while, like we stopped doing the horns after 8. Things like that. It's been getting a lot better for the locals, and I think they're starting to realize that. I know a lot of them are still mad because they can't get out and walk down the road without a big group of people around and stuff, or the dogs might not be liking it, but still.
I was going to say the 10-day, what was a court order ended, was it yesterday or today?
I think it was yesterday, but I actually haven't looked into it yet because I just got home there yesterday, so.
Yeah, I just wondered whether or not the sound of horns blaring kind of still rings through your head in the middle of the night. I think, was it maybe Pat King or one of the guys that's been kind of one of the faces that you see here, at least maybe in the first weeks or so, said, hey, every 30 minutes, 10 minutes straight. And then boom, that's exactly what you heard.
Yeah, they stuck to it pretty good. But I will say, when me and Tash would get back home at night and we'd be laying in bed, he'd jump up out of nowhere and be like, did I just hear a horn? She'd be like, no. And then vice versa, she'd do the exact same thing. It does sit in your head for a while. I just started getting rid of the horns today.
Fantastic. I guess let me ask you this then. As you guys congregated about Ottawa, you know, a lot of these other pop-up protests that also took place along the border, whether it be Coots, Milk River, down around Detroit, Windsor area that tied up the bridge up until this past weekend, I guess, are those more or less seen as spontaneous deals, or are you guys pretty in tune once you're in Ottawa, what's going on with various other areas net where some of these convoys have migrated to on the border as well?
So those ones weren't actually part of this original convoy. Those would just be people, I'm assuming, that couldn't make the whole trip out to Ottawa and such. They made their own little groups and things like that, like the Halifax convoy that's starting this weekend. They're doing like a 3-day one in Halifax, which is fantastic. It's being run by someone who doesn't even appreciate Pat King. So he is like not even part of that. And I know Pat King was one of the main organizers, but like I said before, this has shifted from no real specific organizer. Sure, he comes out and says this or that, but realistically, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. We're all in this together. We all know what the the tactic is. We all know what the protest is standing for, and then we're just sticking to it. So those are extra ones we see popping up. They're all usually organized by someone else in groups around other places. Like, we know about them, but we did not start those or anything. We're doing our own thing here in Ottawa.
Well, it's been fascinating to watch for sure, because, the concept of it, organized, disorganized, everybody kind of come together, coalesce about a point right in the capital city, right around Parliament. We watched Trudeau run like a little biatch right on out of the city and go to his hidey hole. And then you start to see some of these other groups pop up, and it's kind of neat in that it's so disorganized that they don't know where the next one may pop up next. And I guess that's kind of perhaps maybe the beauty of it all.
Well, yeah, I think like I said before, right, where we've gained so much traction, a lot more people that were worried about this or heard bad things about it in the beginning started to see what it was really like and wanted to actually do their part, whether it's from home or not, or if they couldn't make it out for weeks like me and Tasha did. It doesn't matter, right? They're basically have seen that there is a large group, and it's not a small fringe minority anymore. And I think we've given a lot of people the strength to actually speak out and see past the bull crap, I think, is how I would see it. And I think a lot of these other places have just built the strength because they've seen us doing what we're doing.
It's just overcoming the fear of the propaganda and helping people see the light of it all, right? I mean, think of it like a storm where you crawl under a rock for shelter, but once the storm's passed and you crawl out, all is good. And for all intents and purposes, this last couple of years of dealing with the shenanigans surrounding all this COVID business has been exactly that. It's been a constant campaign by both the government, the mouthpieces of the government, aka the Mockingbird media, to push the fear campaign, and people holed up in their homes, afraid to, see their shadow and everything else. And then finally you get a group of folks, albeit small at first, and finally it starts to gain steam, especially over the last couple of weeks. And lo and behold, I don't know how many people would you say out of the city of Ottawa at this point are now coming down and either talking and or joining forces with the truckers at this point?
Well, see, at first, I think a lot of these people were a little bit upset because they didn't realize. I think they were kind of deceived as well by the size of this. So once we got there, they were like, holy crap, there are a lot more people than we ever anticipated. This is packed. Leaving your home, it's just consistent honks, honk, honk, whatever, right? It was the first week. Everybody's excited to be there. We've contained that quite a bit now. But I think that more locals started coming out with what was happening the first couple of days, where it was kind of hectic. They started to make their own stories, tell people that we're so violent and angry and blah, blah, blah. Eventually, I think it just, I think a lot of locals were kind of like, okay, well, wait a second. Why aren't we getting the real story here? Because everything I'm seeing online, not mainstream media, is showing me something different. So a lot of them took those initiatives into their own hands to actually come down and talk to the truckers. And you started seeing a lot more articles and portions put out. I mean, even as the weeks went on, even at my stream, the amount of locals I kept meeting later, like in the second week and the third week, it was like, I felt like every second person I met was a local. So I think that locals started to really understand what this was like, and hearing a lot of the things that Trudeau's saying and putting in this emergency act and shit like that. It's like, okay, wait a second. I don't see this myself. Anything that's been violent or anything has been people from locals from their own apartments throwing eggs at people down the road, striking people, just stealing their flags. Like, of course, they're done with it and they're annoyed and they're pissed off. But I think a lot of these locals have kind of changed their tune as well and been like, I'm going to go figure out what's going on for myself instead of just trusting what the mainstream media is putting out there for us.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, if you think back, and I don't know if you guys north of the border had similar scenarios in that with the Antifa BLM folks and that we had leading up to, say, the election of 2020, when all this COVID business was going on. Nope, you couldn't gather for a Trump rally. You had to mask up, social distance, or try to tell us to. But in the meantime, heck, they were burning down cities, trashing people's businesses, overturning cars, looting, burning, you name it. How many broken windows, overturned cars, burned out buildings and or cars have you seen thus far?
I have seen none of that. I have seen one window smashed but there was already a piece of wood, like a piece of plywood covering the the window. But that was the first day we got here. Literally, the first thing we walked by was that, and it was down. It was actually down like 3 blocks away from where from where like the truck started and stuff, and where the protest was. So I actually don't know for fact if that was protesters or not, because that was literally the first day this started when all the trucks got here. So I don't know what that was. That's all I can say is that I seen a window covered with plywood. But I've actually talked to quite a bit of business owners and stuff like that too in the area, and local business owners, and they're reaching out and they're talking. And any of the businesses that decided not to shut down through this have been doing absolutely fantastic. There's a convenience store like on one of the blocks. I forget what street it is, but we talked to the owner there and we said, hey, like, has this been like hectic? Has it been crazy? Have you gotten like any violence? He said none at all. He said he's made $800 in tips just from people thanking him for being open and just being there and not being afraid of us and just standing his ground, because people still need to make their money. Tim Hortons, oh my God, they said that they haven't been this busy in years. So like just companies that decided to actually take the initiative and stay open and open their doors for this, take the fines, even if they do, they're still making more money than they were over the last 2 years.
I was going to say, even prior to that, wasn't there an edict or decree by the mayor of Ottawa to shut down your businesses, roll up the sidewalks and all that, and do not engage, that sort of thing? And then, like you said, you have a couple of these shops that have benefited greatly as a result.
Yeah, no, exactly. He put that out before we even arrived there. But it was just a small fringe minority, so I still don't really understand why he decided to do anything like that.
That
But
is
he did
kind of funny,
something
isn't
like
it?
that, and a lot of businesses did shut down because based off of the fear. I mean, the last 2 years you've been living in fear. Why would you change now? But I think a lot of those businesses have started to open up, and a lot of them are making a lot more money and doing a lot better than they have over the last 2 years.
Yeah, good on them.
Yep.
I guess while you've been there, what has been the sentiment of the police force net, whether it be the Ottawa City or the RCMP, from say your first weekend there till now? Because I think over the last week or so, we saw that 50% of the force resigned out of the city, and then we just saw the head of the police net resign yesterday.
Right. So nobody knows the real story about the chief police resigning. Now, there was a lot of videos made by police. You've probably seen them online, OPPs and the local police of Ottawa. I know that they've been actually kind of stepping up, making videos of themselves. Like, you're not doing your job properly. I can't believe you're doing this. These people are peaceful, and you're expecting us to go take their gas, which is keeping them warm for the night. You're expecting us to go take down their barbecues and their food and everything like this in their tents and throw them all out. They're not even doing anything like even like it's just it's so hard to explain, because I've talked to so many police there and they're all so friendly. I saw 2 arrests myself, and they were not even part of the convoy. They were 2 drunk homeless men that were just down the way. I just saw a bunch of lights and I drove down, and it turns out they weren't even with the convoy. They were both caught on film. But I've yet to see any arrests myself, yet to see anything that the police were angry or anything. Like, I've talked to so many of them on stream, and they all say the same thing. This is extremely peaceful, and we're not doing anything wrong as far as they were concerned. Now, obviously, some police would say differently depending on their situation. If they, but like, nobody's fighting back, nobody's stiffening up, nobody. If like anything that I've seen online, even other places that are having their little convoys and their blockages or barricades or whatever, even there, it seems like people are just taking the arrest. They're not kicking back. They're not screaming. They're not fighting. It's just how it's going to go. And I know most of these things aren't going to hold up in court anyways when they eventually get there. But the police have not been what they tend to say online. The police do not want to do what the government is asking them to do. Like, even if you look at the military too, right? Military have already come out and said, if you just put in this emergency act, we're not helping you. There is no emergency here. We're not stepping in there where there's so many veterans there and stuff like that. We are not helping you. Do not call me. Do not ask me to step in with the military. This is not an emergency, in our opinion. They said that. So it's basically come down to the police force. The only problem is the Ottawa police chief resigned. Why did he resign? He might have been forced out of resignation, maybe, if he wasn't actually implementing what he was coming out on TV and saying he was. Maybe he wasn't actually telling his police to actually go do this, go do that, right? They did some of it. They have to do some of it just so people can see. They're like, okay, well, you can't push those around that much. At the same time, they really didn't do anything that I've seen. And we were down there 4 to 6 hours a day, every day. It was so from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these police and the resignations that have been passed in, these police do not agree with this, and they do not enjoy what's going on. I mean, how could you as a Canadian?
Yeah, I mean it's a case of where you see for what we call like the thin blue line, right, that maintains a separation between the peaceable society versus the heavy hand of government, and they try to play both sides, if you will. They're kind of caught in that middle, and of course, if any of these guys have any conviction whatsoever about rights and the people as a whole, they know which side they should be on, but at the same time, they're taking a paycheck from the government. So, and of course, anybody who's ever followed the Nuremberg trials net out of World War II and what happened there with just, hey, I was just following orders, ought to be pretty clear as to what happens to folks who just take orders.
Right, exactly. And I don't know. I think it's just created this insane divide. And I know a lot of, I would say this lightly because I know everybody's been affected differently from COVID, but I found most of the people that were the hardest on me through my values and my beliefs of what I thought about this entire thing has been a lot of government employees. Why? Because they weren't affected like we were. They're still taking their full-time paychecks, not working because they weren't allowed to be around people. There's still nothing really affected them. They got to stay home with their families and actually spend quality time with them. Like, sure, of course, they still want to go out and do things, but through these restrictions, they were not affected like a lot of other people were in private entities and stuff like that. Private companies really got screwed from this. Even if you think about like people, private investment funds or something like that, like, of course, they might have money saved up, blah, blah, blah. But if you're taking in an $80,000 salary a year and you got a mortgage that's based off of your salary, what's $2,000 going to do for you each month? It's probably not even going to pay your mortgage. So really, I think there's a lot more people that were directly under the hand of the government that weren't affected as bad as a lot of other people. And it's hard for them to really grasp why grasp the difficulties that a lot of us other people went through. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess maybe another question might be, from the onset, as the folks rolled in first weekend, even till now, the main mantra that I see is just come talk to us. But yet you will see no government official, whether it be city council or anybody out of parliament. What was it? Maybe that first weekend I saw Bernier and that maybe walk amongst the crowd a little bit or something.
Yep.
Aside
Derek
from
was out too.
Yeah, aside from that, you have not seen government official one set foot down near Parliament on stage and say, "Yeah, let's have a frank conversation."
So I have actually seen quite a bit of. Is my mic on? Am I good?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, cool. So I've actually seen. Sorry, it's showing that it wasn't here. There we go. I'm good now. So I've seen quite a bit of government officials and stuff like that actually come down and talk to the people, do things like that, which is fantastic because it is time to do this. It's 100% time to come down and talk to people, but it's mostly conservatives, of course. They've actually come down, chatted with people. Pierre Poilievre came down and they put like a gate around him and stuff, and he got to meet a bunch of people, introduce himself, get some stories from people. So like we actually had that on stream. There's another girl, I forget what her name is now because she just started really standing up recently. She's doing a lot of Facebook lives. I completely forget her name. I'll drop it in the chat after this.
Okay.
But there's been so many more people like in the government, which we need those names and we need those people and those faces to actually come out and step up and say things out loud so people start to see what's going on in Parliament and stuff, right? So like even the vote last week, all they wanted to do was they put that motion forward to see if we could have a plan set out to us by the Prime Minister of what was going to happen with lifting the federal mandates. It was just a plan. That's all they asked for. And it got shot down. And it was 183 to 151. And there was one liberal that actually went against the whole tides and went against the liberals and voted against it. The rest, it was Bloc Québécois and conservatives as a whole. But at least, 30 votes off, that's not that bad. eventually more people are going to see what's going on. More people are going to get scared in government about maybe possibly getting in trouble. I think you're going to see a lot more tide switch the longer this goes on. And this Emergency Act is really putting a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
Yeah,
But
I would imagine.
yeah, but to answer your question shortly, there have been quite a bit of politicians coming down. None of them really got on stage except for Derek Sloan, and Bernier got on stage, I think, the first day we were there. But other than that, they haven't really been getting on stage, but they are making themselves known. They're taking their walks. They're coming to talk to people. They're talking to truckers. It's been changing quite a bit.
Well, if you could maybe explain to the audience and that how exactly your form of government works, because obviously we've seen provinces and that say they're lifting mandates on certain dates, like Doug Ford and that, and his various province. And I think you were saying even before show here that 6 of 10 provinces have lifted restrictions, but is the federal government one kind of overarching over all that? And so even if the provinces lift their mandates, does that mean that people still have to abide in the federal mandates?
Yeah, so the federal mandates are different because it would come into like border passings. I'm not allowed to get on a flight and fly to BC. So if I had an emergency, I would actually have to drive all the way to BC. They had border blockages between provinces, and a lot of these things were federal. So realistically, the federal government put out a lot of things that were going against the Charter of Rights. So provincial still creates their mandates and their restrictions from a provincial standpoint, just to base on their, the amount of cases. And I don't know what the heck they based it off of. None of it makes sense anyways, but that's beside the point. Each province can make their own mandates, but the federal ones will be a trickle down effect, in my opinion. And that's usually how it happens. When you see one province come out and lift mandates, you see a lot more follow. And that's what's been happening, right? Saskatchewan did. And within a week later, we had 6 provinces now with full dates by March 14th, with no vax passes and mass mandates to come shortly after for those other 6. So it's still the federal government that we want lifted, and that's why we came here, and that's what we're going to get done, because that is actually going against our Charter of Rights.
So where do you think this heads next then, given where Trudeau is kind of, I guess at this point said, hey, this is the way it's going to be, basically declare you guys terrorists and everything else at this point. And I guess, how do you guys see the resolution of this at this point?
So that's probably one of the most difficult questions to answer right now, because realistically, Trudeau hasn't even come out to just speak with us. Even at that, you just realize essentially how much of a coward he's being. At least come out and talk to the people. If you're not going to raise them, come out and tell us why. There was a debate plan for the 3 mRNA doctors and stuff like that to have a debate with his 3, the health minister, Theresa Tam, and 2 of her best colleagues, and they accepted it, and they're supposed to go to it. I think it was yesterday or Monday, maybe. They're all supposed to go to it, and none of the government employees showed up. Why would they hide?
Was that the one that Laura Lynn Thompson interviewed, or no?
Yeah, there was a big live thing. It was on CBC, I think, too, actually.
Okay.
I think there's a few different live ones, but it ended up being not canceled, but there was no defendants to the debate, and they accepted it. They basically made us look like fools, but more importantly, they made themselves look like fools, because if they're not necessarily, if they didn't have anything to hide, and the science was real, why are we not proving the science to this many people? You have this many people out here right now, and it's a state of emergency. Why not prove to us why you're right? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like that would have been one of the best things Trudeau could have done, was to have those 3 people come here. And even Theresa Tam, less than a week ago, said we need to reevaluate our federal mandates. She even said that, but there's no more information passed on to that.
Right.
So I don't know, man. Just everything's just been so fishy, and I really think that Trudeau's almost too far now to go back on his word and essentially say that we are right and we should lift the mandates. As you can tell, with every single person or every single province that has lifted their mandates, their MPs or whatever have actually said, oh, but this isn't because of the trucker convoy. Well, what the hell is it from? Because 6 of you guys did it all within a week, and it was only a week after we got here. Now it's a state of emergency. I don't there's so many questions to it, but I genuinely don't know. The federal mandates might be the last ones lifted, to be honest, just because of how stubborn Trudeau's being. And he won't even, I mean, I know me personally, I'll post a few things. I've admitted when I was wrong. I'll repost them after. And I say, look, I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't do my research. This was taken out of context. And it's things that Trudeau said, the videos that Trudeau said. And I just think that it's time for him to man up and at least talk to us, at least give us reasons as to why what you're doing is working, because as so far it hasn't. And
I
I think
guess,
he just, sorry.
yeah, I guess along those lines, I guess how in tune are the people that you've met on the streets with Trudeau's, I guess, how shall I say it? Maybe some of his leanings and or teachings, meaning, many of us recognize that he was part of the young leaders and that tied in with the World Economic Forum and the Davos types, the Klaus Schwab schools, and all that good stuff. Are people understanding that your Trudeau is pretty much a puppet on a string controlled from afar?
I don't know how in tune people are, but at the same time, he's the top dog in Canada that we're able to actually go to and protest. Yeah, and I know there's still World Health Organizations and they have their ideas and but who knows? Because I don't even know. It's a tough question to answer because there's so many people across the globe and so many countries that have all done things differently that aren't part of certain groups and unions and stuff like that. And they're all doing them differently, but their stats aren't coming out the same that ours are. So I really don't know. I don't know how in tune everybody is with understanding the entire process of this, but I know that the only person that we can do as Canadians and put pressure on to change something is Trudeau. And we don't need to listen to the World Health Organization and what they have to say. We don't have to. We've seen it for ourselves. He keeps talking about the science, but he won't present any of it. So I don't. He's the top dog that we can go to actually get things changed.
Right.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Well, yes, but no. I mean, those of us that do a lot of research and dig deep into this know that most of these governments are puppets on a string, including ours down here. If you honestly believe that somebody like Biden is acting on his own accord, well, I probably have some nice beachfront property to sell you in Arizona or something along those lines. But right. It's the same case all the way through. And if you understand the whole storyline of COVID, right? If you date yourself all the way back to say October 2019, when they had the event 201 with the likes of the Gates and the John Hopkinsons and everything else all tied into that, running their little tabletop exercise that seemed to manifest itself exactly as such, starting in January 2020, became a pandemic in March of 2020, and up until now, it's running its course. Think of all the things that they've had to do in order to maintain this narrative along the way. They've had to change the name and definitions of what vaccines are. They've had to move the goalposts on so many things in order to fit their narrative, and it's ever shifting. And I sincerely hope that the people are seeing that across the board, not just here stateside, but even you guys north of the border, the constantly shifting goalposts.
Right. And I do know that they are so interconnected and stuff like that, because like even when you see Trudeau speaking out and stuff, it's right off a piece of paper and there's no answers. There's no changes to any of the questions. It's the same response to everything. He's basically, he is a puppet essentially. And I know a lot of these people are. Biden's in the same boat. But it's still, I still just don't know where else to reach with this thing that would be able to go on a global scale. I mean, this is starting to take off from putting pressure on many leaders from different countries across the globe, but there's just so much to this. And like you said, with the goalposts being moved, you almost can't keep up with everything. It's almost impossible to keep track of what's being changed and what isn't right now. It's just such a flow of information. It's you really have to focus on one thing and then put all your pressure on that at first. Like I know me, even when I was streaming and stuff, me trying to get news out and like actually read up on all these articles I was being sent and things that like it was impossible for me to be out there streaming, trying to eat and keep myself clean and everything else aside from this. Just getting the boots on the ground footage, that was my primary goal, which I did succeed with that. I got lots of people to understand what was going on. But aside from a lot of the research and stuff, it was very difficult for me to do that over the last few weeks. So, I mean, a lot of it's just what people are sending me and stuff. And so even when it comes out to more global stuff too, it's been hard for me to keep up with. I'm not going to lie to you.
So let
some
me
of this
ask you
stuff's kind of
this. When you were on the ground, how many other streamers net were you able to run into? There's been some prominent folks net out there like Outawalks and Viva Fry and let's see, who's another one? Machines, um, whatever his channel is, and a couple
Travel
others
Fund
net.
69.
Travel Fun 69. Were you able to kind of have a meeting of the minds and say, here's what we're doing, here's what we're doing, maybe kind of take shifts or something so we get good coverage, or focus on any one thing? Or
Yeah, so a lot of the people that were here doing that are actually like locals anyways. Like I know Ottawa lives here. A lot of these people do live here, so they were able to kind of organize between themselves. A lot of the YouTube streamers anyways. But me personally, I didn't know anybody else coming from Nova Scotia that was doing this. So I was just kind of a little like a rogue. But as I was going along, I did get to meet lots of people, and they all wanted to get the same message across. The mainstream media. Pat King came out and said something. I think it was the day we were getting ready to leave. Pat King came out and said, don't trust these live streamers. And he listed off a big amount of names. And he said that he thinks that they're undercover police. And this is kind of why I'm kind of, I don't fully respect Pat King and what he believes in and the way he's been kind of going about this. I know he's a major organizer when it began, which is great because he brought all these people together. But I know he started getting people to come up to these live streamers and ask them what their badge number was and blah, 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 and wouldn't let them record them and this and that. I don't think that was the case at all. I don't look at any of that as a bad thing. What could these guys be getting on film? Nobody has to talk to us. So like realistically, everything I've been doing is the exact same that all of these other bigger streamers have been doing, especially guys on YouTube. I mean, some of these guys are massive. I only have like maybe 100. I think I averaged out like 75 to 100 people in here at once. But like some of these guys have 3 to 10 to 15,000 people on their streams. So they're watching, they have so much more pull. It's kind of intimidating, I think, to the truckers because they want to get the real story out, but a lot of them were taking it in a weird light. And that's kind of what Pat King brought up, but I don't think that was the case. I only see this as positive things. Now,
I
we did
agree.
get together with quite a bit of them, and quite a bit of them were very friendly, and they gave shout outs, and I gave shout outs because we're all trying to do the same thing. We're just trying to get the real story out. And that's all we're doing as live streamers. That's our part in this.
Yeah, good job. I guess before we wrap things up here, I know you got to get going here after a little bit, but what sort of advice would you give folks, I guess, either those who wish to partake in said demonstrations, protests, whatever, that may be streaming, things of that nature, or how to go about getting set up to do something along those lines? What sort of advice might you give?
Don't be scared, and make sure whoever's in there with you are completely on board and support, because the amount of support that I got from my stream and my community and stuff was the real reason why I ended up growing and helping more people to be able to actually see it. So take your time and live stream everything. The people will come, and make sure that you get the real message that you want across to these people, because they will help you out. My community has been phenomenal. The group of them, man, they're all sharing this. They're getting people out. There's new people coming in. Dive into the community that's already out there right now in Twitch and YouTube, and get your name out there and get your material on their pages. They will help you incrementally. You're doing them a service that they can't do themselves, or a lot of people aren't willing to do. I lost a lot of moments when I was out here just because I was so focused on live streaming and keeping people informed and stuff, whereas Tasha was able to actually be in the moment. But my whole reasoning for coming out here was to spread the word and make sure people knew what was actually going on, and I think I accomplished that. And share, get the word out. Just do you.
There you go. And by the way, I have to ask this question. How is the food on the ground out there?
It was so good. I was so busy, man, streaming and stuff. Tasha was like, you gotta eat. But Tasha was the one that you'd probably have to ask that question to.
Yeah.
She loved it, man. She was eating every hour. She was never not full. It was funny. A lot of the places we go to, the chips would be frozen, like so Canadian. The chips would be frozen. The cheese dip was frozen. Just all cold, but it doesn't matter. Tasha loves her shawarmas and her poutines, and we had lots of them and lots of support from everybody out there. And the food was great. Tasha was well fed. She never got hangry.
There you go. That's a plus. I think several times tuning in and noticed the hot dog getting shoved in the face on camera. So yeah, it looked like you guys were doing okay on the ground.
100%, 100%.
I guess maybe another question I have for you before you leave too is
Sure.
I'm assuming you probably had the opportunity to talk to a lot of these truckers. I guess are there any standoutish moments with any of the truckers and that came in? Anything that really sticks out in your mind? Anything anybody said?
Um, I think the biggest message across all of them too, and even numerous truckers have said to me too, like this isn't anybody specifically organizing this anymore, and this is just a complete unity group. And I know they might have started this initiative, and they're the main reason we're here, but a lot of them said how important the support vehicles and the support people were, because really without the support, man, like the numbers would have been a lot smaller out here. So I think what most of them said was how much they appreciated what we were all doing, and to get the real story out, because that's what they're trying to do too. And we just I think a lot more of the stories that really hit home with me were actually supporters that had family pass away from the vaccine or from the actual virus or whatever. A lot of those people were here. They had really deep stories, and I think those really hit home a lot more, because they're literally leaving everything without a cab to stay in, and they're just sleeping in their cars and stuff. And that's how passionate they were. And those really melted my heart. There was numerous stories like that. I can't even get into all of them, but in every single video we had, there was 2 or 3 different people that we just heard stories that just absolutely melted us. And it makes it a lot easier on the truckers when they have people like that they're trying to back, and their own stories as well. So it was,
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't remember. Was that you that was trying to track down the lady that had the white van with the 2 kids and that
yeah,
pasted on either side? Was that you that had the opportunity to talk to
yeah,
her?
we found her, and we gave her a hug, and she told us her story, and she was crying, and we ended up crying, and everybody in the stream got to see some of these real stories coming from real humans in Canada that have actually been affected by this in extremely negative ways, not just because they couldn't go to the bar because they needed a vaccine, but because they had physical health issues related to this. And it's really sad to see. But I was trying to do whatever I could for a lot of the people that were back home too. Like I said before, I was the eyes and ears. So anything that anybody wanted me to say, like I forget who said, but they came into my chat and they said, "Can you please go find this lady? She needs a hug." And I was like, "Sure." So we made it our mission to go find this lady and gave her a hug and gave everybody the opportunity to hear her story. And everything was fantastic here. And I think she's gained a lot of hope where she lost a lot of it the last 2 years. And that's kind of the most, that was one of the biggest parts of this whole thing, just how hopeful everybody seemed and how sincere. And I don't know. It just, I've never felt this proud to be Canadian. And I don't think a lot of these people that had these issues have either.
Yeah, I would agree. And let's see, we are at the top of the hour here. I see KB has joined as well from South Africa. KB says, "May I ask a question here?" So KB, if
Sure.
you're in house here, go right ahead.
Thank you, Breaking. Nice to be here. Jay, well done. You're amazing. Your message is getting out. I'm calling from the bottom end of Africa. We're all in the fight together, and it's amazing to see the spirit of the Canadians. To be honest, I never expected this from Canada, but it's so amazing to see you guys leading the charge from the front. And all strength to you, and lots of love and blessings from this end of the world. I've just got one question, and with regards to the Emergency Act measures that have been propagated, I was wondering, with a lot of these governors of the various provinces rescinding some of the mandates, have they done that knowing that the Emergency Act power overrides those decisions of theirs? And maybe they just want to look good, and yet the emergency powers over, I'm not quite sure, and I'm not that au fait with all of the rules, regulations, and laws of Canada.
So just to clear up, so I think you're asking me, do we think that these MPs, like the people that are lifting the mandates from each province, do we think that they're doing this just to gain votes and stuff, or do we think we're doing this just to make themselves look better and instead of instead of getting on the same side as Trudeau, knowing so many people are against this? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, that's part of the question. It is that, but are they doing that knowing that the Emergency Act powers that Trudeau's enacting will override whatever decisions they make? So it's kind of a two-part question.
Yeah, that is actually a good question. The problem with the Emergency Act is I genuinely don't think it's going to be enforced. I think there's too much backlash of it, and I think from a political standpoint, if Trudeau wants to keep his seat where he's at on the next election, I think if he uses this, it's gone. And I think this is simply just a scare tactic again. I don't see these. It is a very good point. I've never actually thought of it the way you asked this, but MPs could be doing that. The only thing is, why would all of the MPs not consider doing that if it was going to get overridden anyways, right? And I also think that maybe it's not as tied as you might think it would be, just because each province has been so lenient and or strongly backing the mandates and or not backing them at all. Whereas like most of the provinces, once this got going, decided to get rid of their restrictions because they've kind of they've always been quite more conservative in that matter anyways. So I really don't think that this had anything to do with that necessarily, because the Emergency Act is still a little bit different than what it might sound like. So in the Emergency Act, they give the provincial MPs the power to do whatever they need to within their provinces. So they basically override everything and say the MPs here can do this. Now, Nova Scotia's MP has already come out and said, that's where I'm from. Nova Scotia's MP, Tim Houston, has already came out and said he does not support the Emergency Act, and which was kind of shocking because he's very, very against lifting these mandates. So for him to come out and say he's not supporting it, I don't necessarily think that this Emergency Act is going to affect all the provinces like we might think they are. Like, I know it's federal and stuff like that, but like I said before, each province does have the ability to make their own judgments on using the Emergency Act in their favor or not using it at all. So I think a lot of these provinces will still just continue on with the dates that they've set with their mandates. I don't think it's making them look better or anything. I think it's genuinely happening here.
That's good to know. It's kind of like the governors in the US, yeah.
Right. Yeah, you think of it as be like our 10th Amendment, where rights not afforded the federal government are afforded to the states, those not afforded to the states boil down to the people. And that's exactly why you see states like Texas, Florida, and various other red states, more conservative states, that had a lot looser restrictions than that, if any, by way of masks or protocols, things of that nature in hospitals versus, say, some of the blue states that were extremely restrictive.
Yeah, no, 100%. And my dad's actually been in Florida. Like we've always owned a home in Florida. So they always spent like 6 months down there for the last like 5-6 years. But he just went back down again after all these restrictions have been lifted. He finally went back down and he said, it's not even talked about down there. It's incredible. It's like it's never even happened. People don't even acknowledge that COVID's a thing anymore. And they're living life just fine. And I think a lot of places in the world have kind of proven that. And it just kind of sucks being from Canada, where you kind of think we're so like progressive and stuff. We should be the leaders in this and opening up, like with our high vaccination rates and everything else, everything that they've asked of us the whole time we've done. They just haven't held up their end of the bargain, which is really disappointing. And I think the people are just done with it here. And I know I am.
Yeah, kind of like Sweden here in the last couple of weeks says, yeah, we're done with it. All restrictions, all mandates, everything done. You've seen it out of the UK. You've seen it out of the Netherlands, Denmark, a number of other countries as well. But, you know, you take a look at Australia, New Zealand, Canada, on the other hand, and they're going polar opposite.
Right. And these places that aren't considered third world countries, like first world countries, fantastic places to live, places that everybody wants to be a part of, that live in mostly third world countries and stuff. And we're acting like this about it. It's just scary, man, because like a lot of these places that do lift their mandates finally, like Sweden, I don't even think they're talking about getting rid of them again, or I mean, bringing them back again. I don't even think they're discussing that. I don't think any country or anything that's lifted them, have they really come back to it? Of what I've known in the last like 6 months, any countries that have done it or states that have done it, they haven't gone backwards. They just continue.
At least not yet. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, even here stateside, you look at it, just in the last week, all of a sudden you get a bunch of blue states suddenly deciding, oh, the science has changed. No, it didn't. The science didn't change. We got an election coming up. And you guys are tanking badly in the polls. You got 30 Democrats now who aren't seeking re-election because they know they're going to get skunked. You got a number of other Dems now who are going to be in trouble in their respective states, even after gerrymandering their states in their favor to try and get all by their voters in and everything else. They're in big time trouble and they recognize it. So they think in order to appease the masses, oh, we'll just ease restrictions, we'll lift the gas tax for a little while, and forget about all those other failures we said we were going to do for the last 2 years when Dems controlled the House, the Senate, the presidency, everything else. And they have literally gotten not one thing done except misery.
Right. And you can almost look at it as this whole COVID thing for a lot of places have seized a lot of production and stuff. And it just makes you really question if this was just an easy way to take some time to maybe have nobody really looking at what you're doing, if it's all health related. Like it's so difficult to look at because you look at it so many different perspectives too. If you want to look at it politically, I mean, they might have benefited from giving people money and keeping the mandates in, and because they're helping people out that are losing their jobs. The mandates, they don't really think about where the mandates are from. People just realize they've lost their job. Now in Canada, everybody's getting $2,000 a month. A lot of those people here that a lot of those people made more money than they usually make in a month just through the COVID relief programs and stuff. Like there's so much more to this. It's so political now. And that's why I'm so against what's going on. It's get swayed completely away from all the health issues, and it's just strictly political now. It's like you said, the science hasn't changed. The numbers haven't changed. It's just, I don't know, man. It's so much shit going through my head right now.
it's a big ball of yarn, all intertwined. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There are so many agendas at play here, so many things all wrapped into this. Thinking back to the likes of Rahm Emanuel, never let a crisis go to waste. Boy, howdy, didn't they? A lot of things, in a time of crisis, as they say, these are the times you try to push things that you never thought you would ever be able to get done otherwise. And that's exactly what they've done. They've pushed the masses to a point where they've believed in the government. They've thrown fear in the face of everything, made you cower in a corner of your bedroom underneath your covers net for 2 years. And, here we are, and it's time to come out. It's time to shed all that and pick up the pieces and rebuild. The thing that I preach about, and I talk a lot about this on my morning show, is the financial aspect of a lot of this and where this is headed. That, as part of the Klaus Schwab Great Reset, all that good stuff, they have their vision, but it's not our vision, and we don't have to abide in it. We don't have to play inside of their box. If we think outside of the box or the Overton window and that they try to create for us, the better off we're going to be. And we're going to build in, around, and through them. We don't have to play inside their box.
Right. It's true. And that just comes into the large amount of people that are involved in this, and everybody's got their own beliefs and feelings towards it, and they all just clash. And it's just a shame that the government, which has the biggest reach, has kind of shifted people's minds to just settle and just agree.
It's amazing.
It's been a shame.
It's amazing how the science can change for COVID, and yet the science for climate change has been settled.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. It's strange. And if one looks at what's going on in Canada, Jay, with respect to the differences between the French-speaking Canadians, is there greater unity now?
We actually talked to I'm glad you asked that question. We talked to a ton of French people, and I know some of the conversations were difficult because, the language barrier and stuff. But every single French Canadian that we've talked to has said that they've never felt more united with the Anglophone population of Canada than they did now, which is incredible because they've had beef for years and years and years. They had beef up to 2 years ago. They had beef until 3 weeks ago. And now once we've realized, like, you know, we got to be strength in numbers and we have to do this properly and unite as one. And they've both especially Alberta, Quebec, the kind of beef that they had between each other has just completely been mitigated. It's just gone. It's fantastic. Never seen so much unity between two different, like between the Anglophones and Francophones in Canada ever before.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So yeah, I think it's great. I've got family and friends in Canada. So,
nice.
Quebec and Toronto, but and Vancouver actually. Now that I think about it, but it's amazing, and what you're doing out there is even reached the southern tip of Africa. So you're doing a good thing.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. We're all in this together, and this isn't just a Canadian issue. This is a global issue now, and I think a lot more people are realizing that. I mean, 35, almost 40 countries now are standing up, doing the exact same thing. I don't think any of those other countries that are doing this, in my opinion, are going to be as successful as the Canadians were in doing this. Only because I think a lot of these governments kind of know what to expect now. When they underestimated us as Canadians, and we really showed up. And I think that we're seeing a lot of these smaller ones going across the country. And a lot of them are getting shut down much quicker than this one was. And I'm a little bit worried about that for a lot of the international countries, or external countries that are doing this right now. I don't know if their governments are going to be more prepared than Ottawa was. I think they will. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on.
Well, yeah, agreed. Some inspiration. I was actually following what was happening in New Zealand and Australia, which is, I think they've been the laws there are much more draconian, I believe, than in most other places in the world. And just to give you some encouragement, the demonstration that I saw today out of Australia is the biggest one I've ever seen. And then there's been some amazing clips coming out of New Zealand where the Maoris have been going and doing their wonderful haka. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a Maori traditional war dance, and it was so powerful. So Aussie and New Zealand, despite all the restrictions, are doubling down and fighting back. So yeah, I was also a bit concerned, and I agree with you. Perhaps the Canadians kind of gave the globalists a plan on how to fight back, but I think they're going to lose. Cyprus today has eased back on some of the restrictions, and again, they had some really heavy laws against vaccinated and unvaccinated people. So I'm very optimistic. Breaking news that on Wednesdays when we have a chat over the past couple of weeks, I'm really believing that we're going to win.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just from being there for a few weeks, as far as I'm concerned, we've already won.
Yep, keep your spirits up. Well, I know you got to run. Why don't you go ahead and plug where all we can find you, and if you've got some of your accounts that you want me to drop in chat here, go ahead and put those in, and I'll drop those out there for folks where to find you. I've already put your Twitch stream out there, so folks can find you when you go live there. So if you want to go ahead and plug away, go ahead.
Sure, I'll just toss my Facebook and my Instagram in. You guys start chatting, and then I'll say goodbye here in a minute. I got to get these links. I actually totally forgot to do that when before we started.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, so I'll just take a second.
Now, while you do that, I'll pull up a couple articles that came out. We'll probably have some further discussions on here in just a little bit in regards to the goings on north of the border here.
Yeah, and that'd be awesome. I'll tune in for that for sure.
Yeah, out of Blacklisted News, Trudeau said he admired China's dictatorship. Canadians should have believed him. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And of course, after a victory by the truckers, Canada's leaders are gaslighting you. Don't accept their lies. Out a piece out of Rebel News here today. And one more out of Rebel News. Freedom Convoy organizers hold press conference to address latest developments with Ottawa police. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And then, of course, we've got the U.S. truckers make huge announcement in solidarity with the Freedom Convoy here today as well. So we'll talk a little bit about each of those here in just a bit.
I'm not quite sure if it came up in the conversation, but with the resignation of the head of the Ottawa Police, anything that comes to mind as to why? Because it appeared that he wasn't going to resign until he resigned.
Right. I'll just give you a quick, short version. I think that we are never, ever going to know what happened there. But honestly, from what I've seen, boots on the ground footage, the Ottawa police did nothing towards this, and I genuinely think, just from what I've seen, I genuinely do think that that he was telling them not to be too harsh or not to be going at this like others would. I guess if Justin Trudeau's in that position, he would have been trying to get everybody arrested all the time. But I think the police were taking this very seriously and kind of realized, like, okay, this is bigger than we thought. We can't just, you need a strategic plan. But I also think that they've realized this is so friggin' peaceful. Like, what are they going to stop? Are they really going to go up and take food from people? Are they really going to do that? They're not going to do that. And so many police were kicking back and resigning and stuff. I genuinely think, I think he resigned because he didn't agree with what was going on. And a lot of his officers let him know that. And there was like 30 some resignations that day when they first took the gas from Coventry. And I think it's just going to continue. And I don't really know much about the guy that's stepping up. I was looking about him today, we're looking him up today and stuff. But that's all I got. I don't really know much more about the new guy than that. I just know that whatever was happening behind the scenes was shady. And I don't think he was doing exactly what Trudeau did. And now you got the RCMP head taken over as well as the OPP. So I'll be interested to see in the next couple of days what's going to go on there. I think everything they've done so far is just strictly scare tactics.
I was going to say real quick, I think I covered a story here probably within the last week. I'm fairly certain it was Salali that stepped down yesterday. I think he had ties to Deloitte, which is a company in that pulls a lot of data, and they had some ties in with what's going on with the vax passes and everything else. So perhaps maybe some of that got a little bit more exposure amongst the masses and put pressure on them. I don't know. But definitely had some interesting ties in that behind the scenes, certainly.
Yeah, who really knows? And I don't think we'll ever know what happened there unless Slowly decides to leak something. But I'm sure he's probably on contract. He's not allowed. He'll probably get in a lot of trouble if he does that. So who really knows what's going to happen? I'm just interested and excited to see what happens here with these next police chiefs, because realistically, they haven't been as involved, right? Like, obviously, they kind of know what's going on. But I think with new leadership, what they've heard from their own guys and their own people that were on the ground watching all this, I think they'll be the ones that are telling them how peaceful it is and stuff like that. I don't think they're going to want to get their hands dirty and put their RCMP officers at risk of doing stuff that's just unlawful, essentially. I mean, it's obviously technically what we're doing is illegal because they changed the law while we're already up here. But that's I just can't see them coming out and arresting people for this shit. I don't see it. Excuse my language.
Yeah. All right. Well, appreciate you coming aboard here today and giving your side of things here. Appreciate you getting the footage net that you have. Hopefully, we'll get to see you do that again, either in some capacity in your local neck of the woods, or if you're planning on being back in Ottawa soon. And again, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, awesome. I just dropped the 2 links there on in the Zoom meeting chat there. You can grab them from there, or I can send them to you on Twitch, but
Instagram too. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
So Instagram, Facebook, and streaming over on Twitch.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, man. I really appreciate that. I just taking any sort of publicity I can get right now, just making sure people understand what's going on and get the real story. And I thank you for doing everything you're doing.
No problem. Glad we could be of service. And again, kudos to the guys on the ground doing this. I know you guys don't have the most favorable conditions this time of year. Again, last night listening to another streamer talk about somebody who is streaming on the ground says, their fingers are literally frozen in a fixed position to where they can't bend their fingers in this cold weather. So I know it probably does take a toll on you guys for hours and hours a day out there getting boots on the ground footage, especially this time of year. But thank you for doing that.
So that was a good message. It's tough being out here right now this time of year. Your phone gets freezing cold. You got to keep everything plugged in, keep it up to date. It's not easy.
Yeah, if I can just add, thank you for fighting for the rest of humanity.
No problem, man. Thank you guys. Just keep getting the message across. Anybody that's listening right now, just share this stuff. People need to know what's going on and don't listen to mainstream media. And that's all I really got, guys.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot for
Well,
having
appreciate
me.
it. Yeah. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, awesome. I'll give you a shout out in my chat there so you can so they can all go over
There you go.
and drop a
Appreciate
follow
it.
for you too.
Thank you.
Anyways, thanks a lot, guys. Talk later.
Take care.
Lots of blessings.
Well, there he goes, folks. One of the folks net has been streaming regularly on the ground in Ottawa over the last couple weeks. Many of you guys have probably followed several of them that are out there. There are many. It does take a toll on you after a while, and sometimes they too need a break. But thank God for them, because they are absolutely doing it at a time when it's most needed to counter the propaganda, the misinformation, the disinformation campaigns coming out of the Mockingbird media in Canada today. So kudos for doing that. Appreciate it. And again, hopefully we can take some of the lessons now that they have done north of the border here for each of us, respectively, in our areas, in our countries now that are looking to do similar measures. So again, big kudos to him for doing that.
They've been pretty inspirational. Well done.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta be bold and just go out there and do it. If you got the equipment, you got the wherewithal, you got the data plans. That was probably one question I did forget to ask him about, because there was one night, I think there had been a lot of hype in that about whether or not the police were going to try and shut down the signals net out of the towers to prevent information from getting out. And it just so happened that the one night that they were talking about that, his stream went down, and then he immediately came back and says, "Look, guys," it says, it was my battery or something along those lines that took a crap." And I had people kind of freaked out there for a second. It's like, no, this was purely my deal. I forgot to recharge a battery and flip flop, and he got back on it again. And it was just kind of funny how it played out, but nonetheless. So again, if you guys are out there, as I mentioned here, the U.S. is getting ready to do similar stuff. DHS had been tracking it part of the Super Bowl, looking to see whether or not any shenanigans would play out there. What have you, just go out there and do it. And thank God for you guys that go out there, counter the narrative, counter your local media outlets, the top level ABC, NBC, CBSs, and how they wish to try and paint this narrative to the masses who are still glued to their tubes and everything else. Just get out there, get the boots on the ground. If you got the old GoPro, if you got your cell phone, put on the software and get after it. And kudos to the guys too who are taking the streams and putting them into multi-streams. As the US side of things gets geared up here, chances are I'll probably be doing something similar here on my own channel, just because I think there's going to be so much stuff coming through that there's going to be more than enough to try and get out for all the various folks that are doing similar things. So just get after it and get her done.
The volume of information coming out is actually quite astounding. And
it is.
Whether it be Spygate, whether it be the election fraud, whether it be what's going on with various protests around the world, I think it's for the deep state, for whatever you want to call them, I think it's becoming quite overwhelming for them. So we just
and we kind of knew it was going to do that though too, right? I think many of us felt, or kind of maybe had this, I don't even know what to really call it. Intuition, perhaps, maybe, I don't know, a hunch, if you will, that it would lead to this, that there's going to be, like, if you thought we were drinking from the fire hose before in terms of information coming out, trying to digest it, trying to discern what is real versus what is fake, et cetera, et cetera. Turn it up to 11 on the old system there. We'll go full spinal tap here, and I think we're getting to that point.
Definitely, without a doubt. Hence my optimism for the past couple of weeks. I could kind of feel this pressure building, whether it be Ukraine, and I think Putin actually was, I couldn't stop laughing when I saw that he'd withdrawn all the troops after actually, the Western propaganda media trying to instigate a pointless war, and seeing articles coming out that the State Department ordered all the, in the embassy, everything was destroyed, from papers to, fax machines and all kinds of stuff. It's been quite fascinating watching the panic, and that's what I'm really enjoying, because the more the elites or the powers that be that are allegedly in charge are panicking, the more they actually reveal themselves. I don't think any one of us could have red-pilled as many people as they have in such a short space of time. I mean, even Jay's comment with respect to the differences between the French and English-speaking Canadians.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those unexpected twists in the plot line, if you will, right? As much as the opposing side has their agenda, sometimes the good tends to outweigh the bad as a result. And perhaps in this accelerated time frame in which we find ourselves, where obviously mistakes are being made, if you think back to it, this was supposed to be a 16-year plan, and that got thwarted right in the middle. And there was some exposure. Some things happened. We're still chasing some various narratives and trying to sort out the pieces out of that, although many of us have been seemingly like Groundhog Day, reliving this over and over and over again as things continue to get revealed, brought up that we knew 3-4 years ago now, trying to get the rest of the masses caught up. We're kind of in this point of quickening, if you will, where there's a mad rush for them to try and implement the things that they want to do. And unfortunately, as they have ramped up, they have made mistakes. They've exposed themselves for what they are. We're seeing it full on. And in the meantime, not only are we having to go back and relive those moments 3-4 years ago to bring people up to speed, but we're also having to expose all the new stuff that's being revealed in front of us as they make their mistakes.
And to that end, I mean, it's actually, how many times have we been told that these people are stupid? And
well, we're seeing it on full display.
Exactly. Whether it be Whitmer actually talking, I mean, how ridiculous is that? Whitmer talking to Trudeau, or whether it be, what's that lady's name on 60 Minutes, Stahl, where
Leslie Stahl.
Leslie Stahl. I mean, you keep on seeing these things unfold, and you actually think, excuse my profanity, but you can't make this shit up,
Yeah,
it's one foot in the mouth after the other. So I think we have to sit back, enjoy the show, and get a couple of packets of popcorn.
Yep, don't disagree. And kind of maintaining the theme and that we've been on with Ottawa, the trucker convoys, and that this piece come out here in recent days. Trudeau said he admired China's dictatorship. Canadians should have believed him. And it just makes you wonder if the people had known this at the onset, right? And if people had known that Trudeau was a graduate of the Young Leaders Net out of the World Economic Forum, would he have been elected? Or maybe people did know, and maybe the Dominion machines skewed the results in his favor regardless. I think those are some things that perhaps Canadians net are probably going to have to take note of, maybe do a little bit more research on, and or, like in our case, have to worry about our election affairs a little bit more stringently than we have before. And John Mildemore says there's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime, having a dictatorship where you can do whatever you wanted. That I find quite interesting.
Even with Sun TV watching for any slip, he was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fastest. We need to start, investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about, of having a dictatorship that he could do everything he wanted, that I find quite interesting.
Yeah, quite interesting. All right. To the point that here recently, even on the morning broadcast where I cover a lot of economic news and financials and things of that nature, we learned last week that one of Canadians, the Canadian lithium mining places, now was just sold off to China. And we find out that there was very little oversight, very little scrutiny involved in that regard, and it just makes you wonder, who does Trudeau work for exactly? Is he working for the Canadian, the betterment of the people there, or something else?
What do you expect from Castro's son?
Yeah, be interesting to get a little DNA test off of him, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The likeness is actually amazing. But notwithstanding that, you've got so many things coming to the fore right now. You've got Biden in Ukraine. You've got Trudeau in China. The rest, I mean, how many people have been released and not prosecuted for spying for China in the US itself? You've got all these things happening right now, and it's actually beautiful to watch. I think one of the things we have to do as truth seekers, truth tellers, is actually to keep up the pressure. We've got to keep on sending the message out there. And a lot of people are actually waking up, and whether it be through an awful realization that they're being conned into having some poisonous jabs, whether they've lost loved ones, as Jay mentioned, as many of us have. These realizations are actually coming to the fore, and I really do believe that the leaders are actually questioning whether they're going to survive this. I can't see that they can. Whether it be Australia, New Zealand, Cyprus, Greece, Greece is so corrupt and has been run for the past 70 years by basically 5 oligarchs. All of these things, people are starting to realize, well, that we never really had any kind of democracy. And if one goes back to, the election that got Macron elected, it was quite interesting that he won by 66.6%.
Yeah, conveniently.
Rubbing it in your face. And what made me think of that was your mention about the Dominion machines. And how many places in the world have we seen this kind of thing? So, I mean, people are standing up, because if we don't stand up now, we will not have another opportunity.
Yeah, don't disagree. And along those lines, as I mentioned here just a minute ago, stateside here, out of 100% fed up, breaking, U.S. truckers made the huge announcement in solidarity with the Freedom Convoy. The Freedom Convoy in Canada has been extremely successful. Provinces in Canada continue to drop their authoritarian vaccine passports and COVID restrictions that have destroyed the economy and civil liberties in the country. Yesterday, Quebec joined other provinces in announcing that it would phase out its vaccine passport program entirely by March 14th. People across the world have started protests in solidarity with the Freedom Convoy, including a protest in France that saw a violent response from police last week. Now, truckers in the U.S. are ready to join Freedom Convoy demonstrators around the world and have announced that they have formed a 1,000-truck convoy in California. And the Gateway Pundit has this. We've been able to really garner some of the best and brightest on our team to make sure this convoy goes off without a hitch. We've got a logistics specialist, tacticians. We're ensuring we have fuel. We've brought on Exemplar Financial, which has 7 offices throughout the country with lawyers and accountants that are overseeing our fundraising to make sure that that's buttoned up, Steele said. And it says the U.S. Freedom Convoy has already learned from the mistakes of the Canadian truckers and does not plan to use left-wing fundraising platforms like GoFundMe and plans to place their funds in an escrow account so they cannot be seized. So, and that was one of the things that at the onset I questioned is why bother going the GoFundMe route, knowing everything that we know about them and what they've done in the past, unless, of course, it was meant to further expose GoFundMe for what they are. And I think it probably worked perhaps in the truckers' favor in that now you got AGs from various states looking into their affairs and everything else, showing that they're a hack organization.
Definitely, and we saw what they did with BLM. They actually there. If one actually goes and looks and scratches the surface, there's a company called Act Blue, and all BLM proceeds were being funneled through Act Blue to many left-wing organizations globally. So whether it be the UK, Germany, Belgium, and all these countries that were supporting BLM, and I'm not quite sure if you saw that clip with Trudeau actually saying that we like protests like BLM as opposed to the truckers. It makes you understand how the global money laundering stroke cash flow works. And you and I are pretty au fait with what goes on in the financial markets. And none of this could take place without the cooperation and complicity of the banks. So,
absolutely.
The banks are going to be found to be wanting. I mean, even if you just take it on a regional basis like South Africa, where we arguably have got probably the most corrupt government on the planet. There's billions of dollars worth of PPC missing. We even found, I saw an article where £5 billion worth of PPC money has been missing in the UK. And what does it make people actually start to understand is that these governments are not governments. It's actually one big crime family.
Syndicate.
It's a massive global syndicate. They are so corrupt. And all they've been doing is stealing from the taxpayers. And probably the hardest hits are definitely the US and possibly second the UK. So those taxpayers are actually going to start rising up. And let's not forget that companies like Google, Amazon aren't paying any taxes. They're registered in Ireland, of all places. So I think more and more people are starting to understand that you've got politicians making decisions with their own money. So, perhaps might not be a bad idea for us to boycott our taxes.
Yep, don't disagree. And again, just learning from some of the mistakes and that, I think, this movement here stateside will be well off, regardless of what the DHS is coming out and saying about propaganda, misinformation, everything else. And we'll have to see how it shakes out. And, we'll go from there. Shifting gears just a little bit here. You guys celebrate Valentine's Day down your way, KB?
Yeah, but I'm a bit older than you, and one of the things that I'll never forget was when I was a teenager. The rule was that Valentine's Day was the single day that the girls or the ladies were the ones that were going to be sending the cards and the flowers, because every other day was supposed to be for the men. And
right.
And it's interesting to see how that's changed over the years. So I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day, but then again, I'm not getting all the cards and messages that I once got in my youth.
I'm guessing that Malaysia must not have gotten a message, because Insider Paper had this today. It says Malaysian woman minister suggests husbands should sleep separately from stubborn wives for 3 days. Apparently no chocolates, no flowers, not needed there, I suppose, if you got a stubborn wife. Well, yeah, a Malaysian woman minister sparked outrage after she advised husbands to gently beat their stubborn wives to discipline them for unruly behavior, according to the Daily Mail. The Deputy Minister for Women, Family, and Community Development, Siti Zayla Moed Yusuf, has been accused of normalizing domestic violence by encouraging men to strike their wives to demonstrate how strict he is and how much he wants her to change. The deputy minister first advised husbands to discipline their stubborn wives by speaking to them in 2 minute Instagram video titled Mother's Tips. However, if they do not change their behavior, they should sleep separately from them for 3 days, according to the report. However, if the wife still refuses to take the advice or change her behavior after the sleeping separation, well, then the husbands can try the physical touch approach by striking her gently to show his strictness and how much he wants her to change, Siti Zayla said in a video, Daily Mail reported. So, apparently things are a little bit different down in Malaysia.
I've been there. Have you ever been to Malaysia? Interesting place. But yeah, Malaysia, Indonesia, different parts of the world, different cultures, different methodologies, different religion. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but the point being that, yeah, so if the left wants diversity, perhaps they should go and live in Malaysia.
Well, I guess nothing says I love you like a little quick thwack to the back of the head, eh?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, madness.
Well, anyway, the other thing I led off with here at the onset here today is today was supposed to be the big invasion day. And CNS had this as NATO waits, Biden cautious, Russia diplomat says West should seek help for paranoia. Says as the world awaits confirmation that Russia is indeed withdrawing troops from near Ukraine's border as it claims, a Russian diplomat at the UN said he predicts weeks ago that the U.S. would try to take credit for pressuring Moscow to withdraw troops. Dmitry Polyansky, Russia's deputy permanent representative, told reporters in New York that Russian troops inside the country's territory were never a threat and suggested those who claimed otherwise need to seek medical help. I think they need to have a good doctor. I recommend them to do it, specialists in such paranoia cases. Russia's defense ministry said Tuesday some troops deployed near Ukraine had completed exercises and were being withdrawn, a claim that has drawn a cautious response from the U.S. and NATO. And asked when all the exercises near Ukraine would be over and all troops pulled back, Polyansky said that was up to Russia's defense ministry, but added that joint exercises with Belarus were due to end in about a week's time. Moscow said earlier the Union resolved 2022 drills would run from February 10th through the 20th. And I can't remember, is that, no, that's not that article. I think I came across another article that says that, the West is doing so good at wanting us to predict these dates. If you could just put them all on a calendar so that our diplomats can figure out when to vacation, go ahead and do so. And they were actually serious about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually become ridiculous. Watching the legacy media is actually beyond a joke. So I think even regular folk who don't have a conspiratorial bone in their body are definitely scratching their heads and asking questions, which again is something we want. And, long may it continue.
And we'll even give a little bit of credit to the Associated Press here, who just about a week and a half ago called out one of the State Department's boxes and that on his confabulation about, where's the evidence? I just gave it to you. No, you didn't. You gave me your own personal synopsis. We've released that here in recent weeks based on intelligence, and that's all been declassified. No, you haven't. Where can I find it? Basically, he got caught in his lie, and the media caught him on it. And it's been nothing but hype and fantastical rhetoric and headlines galore, and that it's imminent, and then nothing.
Wag the dog.
Yep.
I watched that clip, and does that guy still have his job?
Of course he does. Of course he does. No harm, no foul. Nobody's going to hold these jokers to account. Are you serious? Anyway,
interfere with an enemy while they're destroying themselves, breaking.
yeah, like I said, even here this morning, talking about the Durham case and everything else, there's some questions being asked. How long before we see Jake Sullivan and the likes of Elias and that rolled up? How long till we see the indictments on those cronies? Sullivan's in a dangerous spot. He shouldn't be there for one. Holdover from 44 and support for HRC, both hands deep into the Russia collusion narrative. And I wonder what's going to happen when the indictments roll out. Are these people going to resign their spots, or are they going to snow it over like what the media has already done with Durham stuff here this past weekend and just pretend it doesn't exist?
I've actually been quite encouraged as to what I'm seeing coming out of the US with respect to Obama and Hillary, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not looking good for them. And it's almost as if I didn't have such a devious mind, it's almost as if, Durham is actually toying with it by actually releasing or having certain bits of information released, drip, drip, drip,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree.
You think so, or was it just me?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said, it appears that we possibly agree. I was just thinking that it might have been my conspiratorial mind that was actually running amok.
Yeah, I don't think there's any conspiracy behind it. I think he's just rolling it out as he sees fit when there's a window of opportunity as the narrative tries to shift one way, and these idiots think that they're going to whip up a war and make people forget what's going on behind the scenes because everything else they have touched has failed. The COVID narrative fail, the science fail, Fauci fail. The likes of Pfizer and that throwing in their financials that they expect to take on some magnificent risk in the future that may impact their bottom line. Gee, I don't know. What else would we want to try and distract people from while all that's going on?
Well, with respect to Fauci, I mean, I don't think he's going to be able to draw on his pension plan. I think that.
I would guess not.
Yeah, I think it's almost as if they're hanging him out to dry.
Well, hanging
like
out to dry, if those are mutually exclusive things, well, it is what it is. But anyway, aside from that, a new poll, overwhelming majority of Dems want Hillary Clinton questioned over Trump spying scandal. Interesting. Is it that the Dems really don't like Hillary that much, or have their eyes been opened?
Didn't she win the popular vote?
Not to the degree that Joe did.
Yeah, exactly.
The Dem Party faithful typically fall in line with whatever their leaders tell them to think, but the times may be a-changin'. If new tip poll involving Hillary Clinton is any indication, a growing chorus of Dems believe 2016 presidential candidate HRC should be questioned by Special Advisor John Durham for her alleged role in the Russian secret server scandal in a poll conducted before bombshell revelations that her team spied on Trump's campaign, the Daily Mail reported on Sunday. In a poll last month, 66% of Dems wanted Clinton questioned, a whopping 22 percentage points higher than how many inter-party demanded a probe last October. According to Technometrica Institute of Policy and Politics research, the report noted. The amount of Republicans demanding answers is also swelling, rising to 91% in January from 80% last October. The report continued. Among the independent crowd, those wanting the former Secretary of State probed rose to 74% from 65%. That's a pretty good swing in the polls there. What do you think the driver is behind such a swing, especially among independents and Dems at this point?
It's amazing how the truth, I think it's accumulation of things. I simply can't believe that it's purely about the Spygate revelations that have been coming out, because I think it's a cumulative thing. And by that, I mean the Democrat behavior when it came to the way they dealt with COVID, the way they're pushing the jabs, a whole multitude of things, the way the media has actually been protecting them. I think the media, as despicable as they are, have actually done us all a big favor, because their behavior and the cover-ups have actually been so obvious that even the most independent, and I use air quotes, of people, has got to start asking, hold on a second, this is not normal, you know. So yeah, I think it's a multitude of factors, but certainly I don't think she was greatly loved anyway.
So everybody was in the basket of deplorables, not just Republicans.
Well,
He pretty much detests everybody that's not in her inner circle.
Well, exactly. Although, I mean, the behavior of some of the Republicans has been despicable, at best. If you look at somebody like Murkowski, if you look at somebody like, what's our favorite bloke? Sorry, I forget his name. But you just have a look at the number of rhinos actually not stepping up to the plate of late. It's almost as if they are blind to the fact that all these truths are emerging. But I think their days are coming too. So I'm, again, optimistic looking forward. But it's interesting to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up, because back out of 100% fed up here says, breaking update, House will investigate Clinton for spying on Trump campaign if the GOP gets a majority, McCarthy says. The Durham probe continues to expose the blatant corruption of the U.S. government as well as the Clinton campaign. And on Monday, it was revealed that both Obama and Biden knew about the Clinton campaign's attempt to use shoddy intelligence to smear President Trump and to gin up a phony FBI investigation against him. The corruption may have even reached the office of the president. With the House and Senate currently held by the Dems and the Biden administration refusing to even comment on the scandal, there's currently no avenue to hold Clinton or those who worked with her accountable. Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy announced yesterday that he plans to investigate Clinton as well as her campaign staff if the GOP wins a House majority in 2022, the Daily Mail reports. It says GOP leader Kevin McCarthy vowed to investigate a finding from special counsel Robert Durham that Hillary Clinton was linked to the origin of the Russia collusion probe if Republicans take back the House in November. And HRC refused to answer questions about allegations that her allies spied on the Trump campaign as the controversy continued to engulf her Tuesday. Special counsel John Durham's continued investigation into the Russia hoax is essential to getting to the truth and protecting our democracy, and because he has already uncovered several troubling findings, it's clear that Congress must exercise its oversight responsibilities as well, McCarthy said in a statement to Fox News on Tuesday. Said that if the Republicans win the majority in November, they will look into whether federal funds were used, whether federal office holders abused their power, and investigate other disturbing elements of the spying scheme to ensure nothing like it ever happens again. And a House investigation may include a probe of Rep. Liz Cheney's husband and his law firm, who represented the Clinton campaign as they were feeding phony intelligence to the FBI. So, yeah. Well, do we necessarily need McCarthy or some trumped-up investigation by the Senate or the House or anything at that point? I mean, what sort of powers do they have that's going to start putting people behind bars like they have done so well in the past? Zero.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. McCarthy's a bit of a Johnny-come-lately anyway, and
yep.
Yeah, I think the Republicans. I don't know if you saw that poll. Latino Americans and African Americans will support Trump, but they won't support the Republican Party. I don't know if you saw that poll that came out, I think yesterday, and it was really telling and very interesting because it's largely true. And let's face it, there's a big difference between the MAGA movement and the Republican Party, and they keep on getting exposed time and time again. I mean, with Mitt Romney and the likes,
Yeah, I didn't see the poll in that you're speaking of here, but nonetheless, McCarthy, don't trust him any farther than you can throw him. He's part of the old guard. He needs to go. Definitely need new blood in there. And bottom line, if you're part of the old establishment GOP, you're going to find yourself on an island here before long. And the quicker we can get most of you guys out of there, the better off we're going to be.
Exactly. No use to neither man nor beast.
Well, let's see here. And some other interesting news on the day here. Leftist group obtained $158 million in taxpayer funds to help illegal aliens not face deportation, as if we don't have enough things to worry about aside from everything already discussed. Obviously, the border situation still on the minds of many. A left-wing group that is categorically opposed to immigration enforcement was able to obtain a $158 million taxpayer-funded contract to assist unaccompanied minors avoid deportation. Specifically, the Department of Health and Human Services granted the Vera Institute of Justice the allotment of money. This institute is a leftist nonprofit that supports defunding the police. They received the contract in 2021, provide immigration-related legal services to unaccompanied minors, per a report by USA Spending, a federal contract database. The Vera Institute of Justice is a behemoth, progressive nonprofit based out of New York City with well over a $140 million budget, which they use to fund a state of progressive causes and initiatives across the country. Jason Hopkins, an investigative associate with the Immigration Reform Law Institute, said to Fox News, whether that be criminal justice reform, bail reform, and also immigration. Hopkins claimed the institute receives roughly half of its funding from the federal government. From 1st of July 2019 and June 30th of 2020, almost $137 million of the nonprofit's $174 million in revenue was from government grants, per the Institute's most recent tax documents. The $158 million is just the latest in the hundreds of millions that they provided to Vera for their services, Hopkins stated. Says the contract hasn't been previously reported. It started on March 30th, 2021, and could potentially end on March 30th of 2022. Says right when the contract went into effect, HHS diverted $2 billion originally allocated for health initiatives, which included expanded Wuhan virus testing to help tackle the growing border crisis. So this is going to go on here for a little bit, but nonetheless, we find out who some of the players are behind the scenes that are fostering, emboldening, exploiting all across the board, and the government is complicit in funding it. How nice. Yeah, let's see here. Aside from that,
I'm going to put something in the chat. It's exactly speaking to that very same thing. And this is actually by a group called Church Militant, which is a Catholic organization. But they put out this video today, which I actually put out on Gab earlier. But I think it's certainly worthwhile playing, and it's only a couple of minutes, but it speaks to the very same thing. I've just put it into chat.
Yeah, let me pull her up.
It's a Catholic charity scam, speaking exactly about the border.
Yes, we are familiar with the Catholic charities, which, by the way, are not associated with the Catholic Church.
They actually are.
Oh, they are now.
They are, but it's really a big scam, and a lot of the bishops are actually turning their eyes away. But this report by Church Militant was actually quite interesting, and it speaks to exactly what you've been saying.
Well, let's let her play through.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Before we begin with today's topic, we'd like to invite you to a live chat we will be producing this coming Friday, immediately following evening news, on the question of the legitimacy of the pontificate of Jorge Bergoglio. We'll be addressing if Pope Benedict actually resigned. Was Bergoglio validly elected? Has he now become an anti-pope? and other pressing questions. Again, that's live this Friday, immediately following Church Militant Evening News. Now, one thing is the Marxist crowd is really, really good at is inventing new vocabulary. Doesn't matter what it is, reproductive health, affordable care, love wins, undocumented immigrants, they got a million of them. But there's always a very singular aspect to their word crafting. Each and every word they use for these titles is always by itself a lie. But when they jam them together, they sound all nice and everything. For example, reproductive health is neither about reproduction and certainly not about health. Just ask the millions of dead children. Affordable care is not about affording it, nor is it about care. Love wins has nothing to do with love, and certainly is not a win by any measure. And undocumented immigrants isn't about not having documents, and they are not immigrants. They should each actually be called fetal dismemberment, heavily taxed treatment, lust prevails, and border usurpers. But hey, who would stand up and cheer for any of that? And taking a page out of the Saul Alinsky playbook, Marxists in the church are just as clever with their word games. Social justice, for example, it's neither social nor just. And when it comes to Catholic charities, it ain't Catholic, and it certainly is not charitable. But hey, since most of the bishops in the U.S. are all throwing in with the Marxist ideology, what the heck, right? Catholic Charities is a fraud. Church Militant, as well as the Lepanto Institute and others, have been saying this for years now. And since the bishops control, or rather used to control, the bully pulpit with the average Catholic, our screams about their corruption went largely unheard. And then came along the border crisis, which has served to unmask their evil.
Yeah, so Catholic Charities is one of the, in my opinion, where I've seen, they're one of the largest facilitators of this human trafficking that's going on. They have individuals who are part of the human trafficking ring working and volunteering in their organizations.
All along the U.S. southern border, Not Catholic, Not Charities is busy at work undermining the country, all in the name of being Catholic and charitable.
I know when I got down here to the border, I had various police officers, border agents, and many of them Catholics say stay away from Catholic Charities because they are encouraging the human trafficking and drug epidemic that we're seeing.
Millions of illegals, mostly single young adult men, are being spirited all over the country by the Biden administration. Speaking of not Catholic and certainly not charitable, and they're using the church to do so. Of course, the anti-American bishops are all down with being used because of the windfall they reap from their national and theological betrayal. Millions of these young men have been what amounts to smuggled across the border in a joint covert operation by Biden and the bishops. Once they are brought in, they are turned over to Catholic Charities offices at various border locations, like this one in McAllen, Texas, where they are processed, put on buses and planes and trains, and flown around to multiple locations around the country in the dead of night.
All right, we'll pause from that there. There's a little bit more to this, but I'll drop the link out there. And it likely confirms everything that we've talked about in the past, right?
I was on mute.
Oh, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you were saying earlier. I mean, how many organizations are actually responsible and are receiving taxpayer money to allow illegals into the country and fly them all around? So it's good to see this kind of thing exposed.
Yeah.
And particularly from Catholics themselves. These people have also been hoodwinked.
Yeah, it's time for people to wake up to the fraud, the scam that's being played out in front of our very eyes, and shut the pipeline down, the money flow to it.
Absolutely.
All right. So aside from that, some interesting news out of campus reform. Medical students may get up to $20 million for committing to provide abortions. Governor Gavin Newsom 2022-23 state budget proposal for California allocates $20 million to scholarships and loan repayments for healthcare providers who commit to offering reproductive healthcare service. What did he just say about reproductive health care? It's neither reproductive or health care. Items in Newsom's proposal apparently came from the California Future of Abortions Council's recommendations. It says California healthcare students may soon be able to pay their way through school by providing reproductive health care services, including abortions. Governor Gavin Newsom's 2022-23 state budget proposal allocates $20 million to scholarships and loan repayments for healthcare providers who commit to offering reproductive healthcare service. The proposal is part of California's plan to become a sanctuary state for abortion should Roe v. Wade be overturned, Business Insider reports. With the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case currently before the Supreme Court, a reversal of Roe v. Wade is plausible. California will continue to be a beacon of light. No, darkness maybe. Expanding access to abortion and reproductive care and ensuring our state is a place where people receive critical reproductive health care services quickly and safely. Governor Newsom said in a January 22nd statement that commemorated the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. So I think we get the idea behind that one. I find it interesting that the word salad, the word smithing and that of throwing words together that sound good but don't mean exactly what they say happens to show up in the subsequent article here. But yeah, basically it says if you're in some sort of nursing or health related field and go to college for it, chances are you may get a grant or scholarship along those lines that may be conducive to abortions, things of that nature. How nice.
Yeah, it's lovely. Tangential to this is when I was wondering the other day, I had one of those left field moments, and I was actually thinking, if people realized that aside from the other ingredients in jabs and vaccines, if they realized that human aborted HEK, kidney cells, were actually included in vaccinations, how many people would have taken the jab, A, and B, how many people would actually be willing to take other kind of vaccines? So, it's a question that I guess we can't answer, but it's really about raising awareness as to the ingredients in the vaccine. And the sad reality is that why would you need to include in all vaccines, not just the jab? Why would you need to include aborted fetal tissue?
Yeah. I mean, the folks in that have, if you followed this saga for the last 2 years, and as jabs come out and as people try to use exemptions, things along those lines, employers have actually doubled down on folks trying to use the religious exemption, citing aborted fetal cells, things of that nature, as part of the jabs net, double down on the people trying to use those and say, look, these cells are used in this, and this, and you have no problem with that, so your exemption is denied. Well, how many people know that this stuff is used in all different other types of medicines and things of that nature?
Even in our food.
Even in our food. Yep. It's nuts.
It's crazy. So it's about an awareness. And I think really, if we're talking about an awakening of the world population, I think all these things feed into it. So excuse the pun, but and that's where I'm getting this hopefulness, and I do see the light at the end of the tunnel, is because more and more people are becoming aware of the evil that has been existing and been propagated by so many of our leaders or so-called leaders in governments. And whether they've been paid off or whether or not they've just received grants or chosen to turn a blind eye to all of this, I think these people have to be held accountable in one form or another. And
speaking of evil and paid off,
I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Prince Andrew settles sexual abuse lawsuit with accuser Virginia Giuffre. And if you might have missed this in the last day or two here, this apparently flying a little bit under the radar. Obviously, Prince Andrew and that pretty well stripped of any sort of royalties and that at this point to come deal with this. The FBI had sought to question him under oath, and he didn't abide in the last year or so since the allegations were made. And then all of a sudden, we find out before this is to start any sort of trial that everything has apparently been settled out of court. Interesting. So Prince Andrew has now settled a lawsuit where he was accused of sexual abuse by Virginia Giuffre in a Manhattan federal court. This was the best avenue for him to pursue because a trial that was scheduled in the fall would have been devastatingly embarrassing for him and for his royal family. David Boies, Giuffre's attorney, wrote, "We write jointly with counsel for defendant to advise the court that the parties reached a settlement," in a letter Tuesday to U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan. The letter also states that the parties will file a stipulation of dismissal within 30 days after Giuffre receives the settlement amount. The court docs stipulate that the settlement sum is not going to be disclosed, and also that Andrew will make a sizable donation to Giuffre's charity that helps victims of sexual abuse. According to The Independent, legal experts estimated the settlement to be worth more than £10 million, but questions remain about how the royal will fund the sum. That's a little over $13.5 million in US. And here is the settlement in its entirety here. It says, "Dear Judge Kaplan, we write jointly with counsel for defendant to advise the court that the parties reached a settlement in principle for the above referenced action. The parties anticipate filing a stipulation of dismissal of the case within 30 days. See Exhibit A. In the interim, the parties request the court suspend all deadlines and hold the action in abeyance. We appreciate the time and effort the court has devoted to this matter." That per Giuffre's legal counsel. Prince Andrew has never intended to malign Ms. Giuffre's character, and he accepts that she has suffered both as an established victim of abuse and as a result of unfair public attacks. The letter reads, "It is known that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked countless young girls over many years. Prince Andrew regrets his association with Epstein and commends the bravery of Ms. Giuffre and other survivors in standing up for themselves and others." The letter continues, "Do you see what they did? They made it appear that Prince Andrew was a bystander while Epstein did all the dirty work. No one gives up that much money when someone else did the crime." Giuffre accused Andrew in her civil suit that was filed in August of sexually abusing her on 3 different occasions when she was a minor at the urging of Epstein and his pimp, Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite. The case was alleged intentional infliction of emotional distress and battery. Jeffrey's legal team was planning to question Shukri Walker, who said she saw the prince with a woman who could have been Giuffre at a nightclub in London called Tramp. Giuffre admitted that she danced with Andrew at the club, but that beforehand he forced himself on her for sex at Maxwell's home in London. Andrew denied the allegations during a BBC interview in 2019 where he said he'd never met Giuffre. His denials cost him a lot after a photo appeared of the prince and Giuffre from years ago when he assaulted her. On top of personal losses, Andrew had to give up his public duties and his royal patronages. So there you have it. The amount not disclosed, but keeping in tow with what the article states, no, it wasn't that he was sorry for being witness to or having ever come in contact with. He partook in it. Why else would he have to forfeit the amount of dollars that he is going to be giving to her charity if that is not the case?
Nothing says I'm innocent like paying out basically a fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that his brother's best friend was Jimmy Savile, who was actually not only a pedophile, but a necrophiliac as well. So, yeah, I mean, this whole thing's corrupt to the core. And what I do find pretty disturbing is that the UK media, while attacking Andrew at the moment because they're kind of forced to, don't bring up any of these other issues or coincidences.
Yep. Yeah, Seville. Here's a name. And man, it also makes you wonder what is going to happen with the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, because now that she went through her mock trial, basically found guilty on 5 of 6 counts, only to find out that a jurist was tainted. Is it all going to come back? Don't know for sure. And of course, I believe there is a civil trial not yet to take place between Giuffre and Ghislaine, and I don't know when exactly that's supposed to start up. Soon, I believe. And on top of that, she released the names and said, I'm not going to provide cover for 8 of the names in the Little Black Book. So where does that leave everything at the moment?
I'm actually beginning to wonder whether Andrew pays this fine or fee, whatever you want to call it, and is actually brought to justice on another point of law. And, I've just got the sneaky suspicion it's not going to be that smooth for him just to pay the excess or whatever it is, £10 million or more, which is a mere trifle for the royal family. So I'm not actually too concerned about where he finds that money, because they've got trillions at their disposal, really. And, as with what we've been seeing exposed on a daily basis, I don't think this is over. I've got that gut feeling that I'm learning to trust more and more, which says to me, he might have got away with this one thing, but I think there's more to come.
Yeah, definitely. So if you think that, the Durham side of things is coming out drip, 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 well, along those lines, I think the never-ending saga of Epstein, Maxwell, Prince Andrew, all that stuff is going to be in kind of similar fashion. And then when it finally snowballs, it's going to be a sight to behold. Now, let's see here. Some other interesting news. Poll shows DeSantis soundly beating all Dem challengers. This on top of the already thwonking that they're going to take your midterms out of Congress. Apparently, nobody is able to stand up to some of these folks. DeSantis is looking pretty good. The rumors are Dems do not plan on putting in any time, effort, or money into the Florida governor's race. And that seems to be the first smart thing they have done in the Biden era. As of now, DeSantis leads all comers by wide margins. Many people think he should run for president, but I don't. He is young, and a Trump-DeSantis ticket could not only win, but could lead to 12 straight years of Republican control of the White House. Well, that'd be 12 years of futility trying to impose socialism on our great country. And I think we all agree that Trump-DeSantis team would right the ship of state, meaning down-ticket elections could swing heavily to the Republicans' favor. Remember what happened under Reagan? He served one term and then won re-election, taking 49 states. Our DeSantis' close opponent is former governor, former Republican, former independent Charlie Crist, who is 8 points behind DeSantis, 51-43, if you can believe the polls, that is. He beats Nikki Fried, who called him a Nazi, 53-42, and he is ahead of State Senator Annette Taddeo, getting walloped by DeSantis by 16 points, 53-37%. His disapproval rating is 53-43, and that makes him king of the mountain. DeSantis, like Trump, is a leader and not a follower, and neither man is afraid of the hate stream media. The media cannot sway either one of them from backpedaling on their decisions. Both have been savaged by the media, but in the end, both have been proven right time and time again. They have iron for a backbone. So there you have it. Apparently, DeSantis leading, things looking good for him down in Florida. Probably the best thing that they can do is leave him right there. Hopefully Trump does not pick him to be his running mate if and or when he decides to do so for 2024 or sooner. And we'll have to see how that plays out. I think the Dems are pretty much Kaputski across the board. They've got nothing. They've been exposed all across the board. That's why you got 30 of them not running, several others in danger in their various districts. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch. Let's put it that way come November.
I think the only state that perturbs me a little is Texas with Abbott, because if he had the wherewithal and the will, he could have shut down so many things on the border. I don't know if you saw the video yesterday of AOC trying to rally the troops. But yeah, I'm the only area that I'm concerned with from the outside looking in is Texas, because who knows what can happen there. Abbott's no real help, and in my opinion, is a real rhino.
Yeah, I don't know election cycle wise when Abbott is due up for re-election. Maybe not this time around. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys in chat that are down Texas way can help in that front. But it may be 2024 by the time somebody like Abbott is due for re-election, and then we'll have to see who is going to step into the ring. If you remember right, what's his name? Oh, doggone. He moved from Florida over to Texas to run.
Yeah. Was he? Are you referring to the guy who was governor?
No, he served the military, glasses, peppery, grayish white hair, black guy.
Yes, he was great. He's great.
Yeah, his name is on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it, unfortunately. You guys know who I'm talking about. He was raked over the coals and west.
Yeah, west.
There we go.
Yeah.
But it may be a couple of years yet before we have to deal with the Texas side of things, and hopefully they get somebody in there that's not a Bush crony. Let's put it that way. Aside from that, the CCP is going all out for collecting gene data of the American. A piece out of G News here today from across the pond. And it says, for the competition of global dominance in biology economic area, the CCP is developing the biggest biology database of the world, which including the information of medical, health status, and genetic of people in many countries, including Americans. Says it is said that the database could combine with edge-cutting military supercomputer to determine the weaknesses of human beings' genetics, and then to develop biology weapons against those weaknesses. The CCP's scientists and military departments have been conducting researches in the fields of brain science, gene editing, and creation of artificial genomes since a long time ago. In 2021, the CCP's genomic company, BGI, Beijing Genomics Institute, suggested to establish a CCP virus, like COVID-19, testing center in the U.S., which could help the CCP to collect genetic data of Americans through the testing swabs. Family ancestry testing is another way for the CCP to obtain DNA data from Americans. So since 2013, the BGI has been continuously acquiring genomes companies in the U.S., and now it has established multiple partnerships with American companies involved in gene sequencing. And each step it takes, the BGI had obtained numerous genetic data. The athletes, coaches, news reporters, and also the other related persons of the Beijing Winter Olympic game are compelled to take the CCP virus test in daily, which means the CCP has already possessed the genetic data of all attendees at the Winter Olympic Games. The attendees are also required by the CCP to download a government-approved app that would collect users' data, which, combined with genetic information, will be added into the CCP's enormous artificial intelligence and genome projects. And I think we knew that heading into the Olympics, that the recommendation, I think, was out of the State Department, maybe here, that athletes travel with burner phones for that very reason. And very disconcerting how they may be using said data. We already knew about the likes of 23andMe and Ancestry.com, and who is ultimately acquiring said data and where said data resides. But it seems that the request continues to try and have databases from top to bottom on people. Know not only from a complete surveillance state standpoint of every move that you make, but know all the way down to your gene level, everything about you. Very troubling.
Added to the fact that it's been proven multiple times, even from the voice, there's a Gates video that he actually explains how the jabs are altering your DNA. So, all these things together, surely, if people actually just take one step back and analyze this, and they have to ask themselves, is this normal, and is this something that we would want?
Yep. Now, let's see. A couple other items on the docket here today as well. Virginia's Loudoun County back in the news. It says Virginia Loudoun County teaching assistant charged in assault on student in latest scandal to plague disgraced school district. Seems like Loudoun County is tripping all over themselves here as of late. Teaching assistant from Loudoun County, Virginia's disgraced public school system has been arrested for assaulting a middle school student, marking just the latest school teacher or staff notoriety last year when district officials pushed CRT on children, covered up the rapes of female students by a gender fluid peer, and turned on meetings and ordering them to be arrested.
It appears that breaking's been kicked out, and the stream's been under attack again. But nonetheless, taking what he was saying forward, Loudoun County was also the very same county that actually tried to cover up the rape by a so-called transgender individual who was, the case was almost dismissed or kicked to the curb. I think it's time for all of us, patriots worldwide, just to actually stand up and resist this tyranny and sickness, because that's really what it is. It's a sickness. We have to actually keep on fighting. Without a doubt, it's imperative that we do not give up. I think now is arguably the most important time for us to be seriously involved in the fight. And I'm hoping that there are some listeners out there that agree with me. And I do see a big light at the end of the tunnel. It's time, and our time will come. We have to be patient. It's taken so many years for the dark side to actually take control as they have, decades, possibly centuries, and maybe even millennia. But we can't expect all of this to unravel in 1 year or 2 years. But I do think that we are close to the end. I think we have to keep the faith, say your prayers, believe in yourself, and believe in God, because without God, we have no hope. And do not be afraid. And I think that's the big message. If there's anything that I can actually contribute to everybody out there is do not fear anything. Because perhaps we were born for a time such as this. And I do believe that I have been born for this time. And it's, while we may be weary with the fight, I don't think we should actually be too concerned, because we know that all you have to do is turn to the end of the book, and the book says that God wins. So go with God, everybody. I wish you all a blessed evening, and to all the patriots around the world, keep your chins up, keep your gloves on, and keep on fighting. And with that, thank you, everybody, and good night. Lots of love, many blessings to you all.